Welcome to the Sales Whisperer Podcast, Session 20. Do what John do. Greetings and salutations, Sales Whisperer Podcast listeners. Thanks for joining me today. As always, got a great interview. This time is with John Saddington. You can see his website at john.do. We'll cover that interesting domain during our talk. But, I forgot to mention, I don't know how I forgot this. Maybe I was just overwhelmed with joy. But Schaefer baby number 7 is on the way. So everything has been confirmed. Shannon's gone to the doc a few times, got the ultrasound, got the pictures. So, with 7 kids that I have to feed, please visit thesaleswhisperer.com and buy a lot of stuff. Seriously, though, it's ironic. Right now I'm redoing the website. As you listen to this in the future, the website will be done if a website is ever done. But, after 5 years, since 2008, I've been a certified consultant with Infusionsoft, sold it, and consultant on it with people. But my website, after taking a step back, I realized it was not as obvious as it needs to be that you can buy Infusionsoft from me. So we're revamping that, whole new look and feel. Got a great team on board, building out some new URLs and landing pages for my Infusionsoft book. I'm coming out with another book on marketing and sales and kind of mentality. It's really a collection of my weekly whispers. So that will be coming out in November of 2013. Got several other books teed up as well between now and InfusionCon in late April 2014. So as you begin to really grow your business, marketing is the most important thing you have to do. And I remember reading this years and years ago where Dan Kennedy and others were talking about having a marketing calendar, knowing what type of business you're going to drive in because you know your numbers, because you know what campaigns, what events, what promotions you're going to be running ahead of time. And you know your conversion rates, and from that you can predict your income. And I knew intellectually that was possible, but to see that start to happen is really pretty exciting. Because here it is, it's September, and I've already got plans for events that I'll be announcing, events I'll be attending, events I'll be conducting myself, books I'm coming out with, 6, 8, even 9 months in advance. So, anything worth doing, I always say is worth doing poorly until you get good at it. And what I mean by that is, take a look at anything you've ever done. When you learned a new skill, when you learned how to walk, you weren't very good. When you learned how to roller skate, when you learned to ride a bike, learn to throw a football, swing a golf club, cook, anything that you started doing, you were bad at, but it was worth suffering through, enduring the badness until you got good at it. So stick with it. Grow your business. Be committed to improving your skills. Listening to podcasts like this is a great way to grow your skills for free. Okay, but then take action. You've got to do more than listen. You've got to take notes, visit the website. This one today is session 20 with John Saddington. We're going to talk about Pressgram. We're going to talk about Indiegogo. We're going to talk about a lot of things. Visit the website, look at the resources, click on the links. Pressgram, I just got launched. I love it. It's giving power back to the people when it comes to owning and sharing your own content, especially pictures, which where this is centered around. So, but commit yourself to growth. Keep listening, but keep doing. That's why I love John.do. So, without further ado, here's my interview with John Saddington. Hey, John, welcome to the Sales Whisperer Podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You gotta love social media, huh? I listened to an interview you did, then I find you on LinkedIn, and then we connect over Twitter because I'm running late because it's 6 a.m. out here, and here we are talking on Skype. Technology is a beautiful thing, huh?
It is. It's also a little bit scary.
So you are still a young entrepreneur, but I see you doing big things, and you're pretty laid back and modest. But I was hoping, as we talked about before we turned the recorder on, wanted to just walk our listeners through your journey of both failures and successes, and even the failures aren't necessarily big failures, which we can elaborate on. But what propelled you to get started in the first place to even launch your own business?
Yeah, I guess it really starts at a much younger age. I started developing software for fun, as a child, and I wasn't a child prodigy by any stretch of the imagination, but it definitely captured my interest and became an obsession. And I started working also at a very young age. I started working for a Dow 30 Fortune 50 company when I was 14, building enterprise software for Johnson & Johnson. And what's funny is I also had a second job as a Publix bag boy, working 5 hours a week for like $5.24 or something an hour, just so I could kind of maintain that. But so I was doing this kind of working in a cubicle and bagging groceries on the weekends. And so by the time I went to college, I had an enterprise career, and failed out of my computer science coursework at Georgia Tech, and somehow cobbled together a degree, luckily, so I could get a piece of paper. But and then worked my way out of college into Dell. I worked as an engineer there for a while, and then I became worked at Fox News Corp as a product guy. I became an executive at age 25 over a Fortune 50 company. And so entrepreneurship wasn't really the plan. It was to follow the corporate ladder and do it as quickly as possible, and because that's really the only thing I knew. But over time, as I worked in the enterprise and became higher up in management, I realized that I, one, had very little respect for authority, still do, and two, I really believed, not, sometimes arrogantly, but in a lot of ways realistically, that I knew how to do it better, and I just couldn't move fast enough. And it was speed that really became a large factor of why I decided to go into my own. Is just I can build these solutions, I can build them faster, and I don't have to wait around 6 months, jockey for positions, and work through bureaucracy and politic my way to get these products launched. And so I began to build my own products at night, back in around 2006, 2007, and I had my first kind of great, success as an entrepreneur in 2007, and I've had 5 or 6 startups since then. I've raised venture capital for some, have had some exits, which has been great, and that's what I continue to do today. So, for your listeners, it was kind of a long and winding story. It was, there wasn't a big plan, a master plan, or a goal. It organically happened as the amount of frustration that I had with my environment just kind of came to a boil.
Right. Well, you and I have things in common. I, too, bagged groceries in high school, but I hated computers all the way through college. So I took my frustrations out on the football field, but I couldn't turn that into anything. And I also have a little respect for authority. That's why we're talking. The gods brought us together. But doing programming for Johnson & Johnson at 14, that is not normal. And I like to remove excuses when possible, because listeners will say, well, I don't know programming. I didn't start as a teenager, so that doesn't apply to me. I'm going to turn this off and go watch reruns of, I don't know what, 90210. Is that still on? I don't know. They're going to watch something. American Idol. How did that happen? How were you programming?
I was introduced at a very young age. While I was actually in Japan, of all places. My parents, my dad spent 3 or 4 years in Japan, took his family of 7 over there, and I went to middle school in that area of the world, and I was introduced into to BASIC and Visual Basic. And I remember my first legitimate program was I made a stick figure jump and kind of take a sword and swing it, and with some MIDI music for those who are old enough to remember what MIDI and wave music was, and then I created a kind of a text-based choose your own adventure game, and it was just in BASIC. But for me, I was really captivated by this idea that in a very short amount of time, I could make things that didn't exist come to life, and I continue to be motivated by that. I love building things out of nothing. But what's neat now, though, and to encourage your listeners, is that I was self-taught, but back then there was very little programming resources for me, and so I only knew up until a point where I kind of, the resources stopped, which was typically my local library, or really nothing at all, or someone who knew it better, which I didn't really have access to. But now, with online courses, free online courses like from Stanford University and stuff like that, you can learn an entire Objective-C for iOS programming from Stanford for free. I mean, unbelievable stuff through iTunes Academy. And for cheap beginner courses for $60, $50-$60 maybe, to learn any programming language you want. So now listeners today can pick up programming, infinitely more fast, and that's what's so scary is the ability to have all these resources at your fingertips was something I didn't have back then. So I think it's there's never a bad time to start. In fact, I was opening a business account for this new project that I just started at my local kind of business bank. And the guy is 33 years old, so only a few years older than me. And he's a single dad, has 2 kids. And he just asked me casually, kind of rote conversation, hey, so what do you do? As he's kind of opening my bank account, and said, hey, I just launched an iOS app for the iPhone. And he goes, and his eyes lit up. And you could tell it was like, ding, this is what, he wants to do. And he said, well, I've been thinking about building security software. I'm just so fascinated by the security industry, and Atlanta is actually a large security industry, technology industry. And he said, "Do you think I could do it?" And it was one of this pivotal moment where I could crush the man's dreams, or I really could encourage him to do change the world. And obviously, I chose the latter. It's like, dude, bro, you can pick up you can learn security programming nights and weekends in the next 90 days, and actually get a junior level role at an agency. And because he was thinking about going back to state school, and I was just like, no, you don't need any of that, man. Right. And it's just so cool. So anyway, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but all that to say is for your listeners, just be encouraged. If programming, and many other things as well, but if programming is something you want to do, it's never too late.
Well, we were talking earlier, I've got 6 kids. Just met with a college planner last night. He's a local guy. He's helped a lot of friends of ours help the kids get into college. And people are shocked when I tell them I'm not pushing college on my kids. If we can work with this guy, and he's fantastic at finding grants and scholarships and whatnot, if they can go for free, hey, knock yourself out. But, my oldest son, he nights and weekends, he's watching my tutorials on Infusionsoft. And he may, after high school, be one of my trainers, if that's his passion. But I love what you said about, like, Stanford and iTunes Library. I mean, there's so much out there. My business now, Infusionsoft, I've got a team. I mean, we're doing API development, WordPress development. I self-taught myself everything, not API work, though, but from WordPress and writing and copywriting. Do you think sometimes maybe there's too many options out there, and entrepreneurs get lost by chasing the shiny object, and so they never really hone in on anything and get good at it?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's exactly what I was thinking about. It's something I coach other people on, as well as organizations and future entrepreneurs. I spent some time with a number of local accelerators and mentoring these startups. And I say, the biggest challenge of being a U.S. citizen with one of the most kind of open kind of information libraries on the internet, not in China where things are blocked, is what we call the tyranny of choice. And it's the fact that we have too many options that we end up choosing nothing. It's like you go to kind of the full service buffet or your local fast food joint, and you just kind of stare at that menu of options. You're like, well, what do I really want? Well, even though you may have walked through the door and you knew exactly what you wanted. You wanted 5 nuggets and some fries. But then you see all the options and then you're frozen. And so, there's something very powerful about the entrepreneur who is able to create or self-generate this model of scarcity, that I don't have I don't have as many options as I'd like to believe, and it forces you to make critical decision making in a way that helps you move forward with your personal projects, your initiatives, your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, whatever. But most people will get stuck. It's like, well, if I choose Objective C, then I'm locking myself into iOS development. Well, maybe I should, choose kind of some wrapper or some platform or some kind of multi, mobile device language. Or what if I go all Android? Or what if I just learn PHP, or Ruby or Rails, or, and then it's just like, well, there are too many options. I'm not going to choose anything. Right. And the object is not to choose right; it's to execute. Because there is no right answer. It's embarrassing now, but at the time it wasn't. But hey, how would I have known? Is I got my big break with Flash development in ActionScript 1.0. It wasn't even called. Actually, it was kind of object-oriented JavaScripting for Flash. Macromedia back then. It wasn't even. This is pre-Adobe type stuff, and Johnson & Johnson or AccuView contact lenses specifically, the company Vistacon hired me as a young teenager to first build their enterprise e-commerce systems, but then to prototype Flash-based websites for Japanese teenagers aged 13 to 18, because colored contacts was just coming into the scene in the mid-90s, and they knew that the Japanese culture were a little bit more technologically savvy, and so moving objects on the screen and a little bit of music in the background would really appeal to that audience, and no one had Flash experience. And, I thought I was such a badass, because I was, scripting this kind of moving objects. But now it's such an embarrassment, like action scripting, Flash, really. But it was more important that I just built the darn stuff, that I chose, that I executed, and then I built an entire career starting from there. And so there is no embarrassment. It's like that's just my story.
Right. Yeah, and that's, I think people freeze from too many choices, too many options, too many apparent options, and then fear of failure. But, I think people are just as afraid of success. Would you agree with that? Maybe something's holding them back, and like, oh, whoa, who am I to run some $1 million or $2 million or $20 million business? I'm just some dude that barely got through college with a piece of paper, like you said.
Yeah, I don't know, because every time I hear that, I really feel like that's there's something underneath that, and that is generally an excuse, because anyone who has actually experienced success, they want that. That's where they were headed. They wanted that, but it's, I don't think
I agree. They want it. The successful want it, but I think the successful overcome whatever head trash they grew up with to go ahead and achieve, rather than lean back on some crutch.
Oh, right. And what I'm meant to say was that I'm not afraid of success, but there are so many there are so many challenges that are right in my face today that are infinitely more important that I overcome, like the next line of code, or, I'm trying to I'm raising venture capital for this project. And so, finalizing my pitch deck, or, I've got a phone call later today with a prominent VC, and it's like success is success. and who really knows what that even means? It means so many different things to so many different people financially, exposure, publicity, fame, fortune. Who knows what that really means? But I think people ultimately want to do something that is satisfying, that I feel like this is what I was supposed to do. I feel really good about doing it. And I don't dread, going to work, whatever, quote unquote work is. And I think in a lot of ways that's success. And I don't think anyone is scared of that. They want that.
Yeah, I think everybody does, but not everybody reaches that, obviously. We talked earlier about, some of your ventures. You've got two current ones. One is kind of winding down or certainly changing. I want to talk about that with 8-bit and talk about Pressgram. But can you walk us through your lessons learned with 8-bit?
Yeah, 8-bit was an idea that I had back in late 2009. 2008, 2009, and I created a product, a WordPress theme, out of some frustration that I had with building multiple client websites. And I decided, well, I'm just going to create some sort of template or framework so I can speed up my work. And I productized it and put it to the market, and it sold like 30 or 40 copies within the first day. And I said, I think I found something. And so I found 3 other partners that would complement my skills, and grew it to an organization of 7. And in about the next year, 2011, our flagship product was voted one of the number 1 themes in the world by Mashable, which was a very nice spike and a piece of exposure. We became Automatic, which is kind of the founding company of WordPress. We became their 5th partner early 2012. Their 5th partner, so that was kind of a very key milestone, and we continue to grow, and about a 3-4 year company. But for anyone who has attempted to grow a company and build a company, it's so tough to get it right. I don't even know what right really means, but it's so tough to do it right, and it's so tough to do it with changing climates in technology. The WordPress is still very nascent, and I being an early adopter, with many of your listeners may actually be early adopters, it's very tough because by the time that kind of mainstream has grabbed hold of it, you're kind of over it. And so that's a constant challenge for me, that by the time people, especially, kind of my barometer is my wife. By the time my wife kind of gets it and she starts using it, I'm like, well, it's boring now. And it's very hard for entrepreneurs to stay the course for something long term. I don't know about you, but certainly for me, I get bored very quickly. And one of the things that I learned is that not all partners see a startup or a company the same way. I think I really learned what it means between the difference between a lifestyle company and kind of an accelerated kind of startup company, or one that tries to find an exit very quickly. A lifestyle company, and there's nothing derogatory about that term, but is one where it's like, you might see 5% increase month over month, and you're happy with that, this is a great business, to see some growth consistently. I'm much more interested in 50% month over month. I really love fast-paced growth, and finding a place of liquidity at some point. And I went to that, kind of building that company, not really knowing the difference, and not sure really what I wanted. So I've taken so many leadership lessons away from that company. It's when you start a company, you have a very clear idea of how you will end it. And I didn't have that. And I didn't communicate that with my partners. I didn't communicate that with my team very well. And we parted ways fine. It was a great way to end the journey. But in the upcoming ventures that I have, and I will have a very clear idea of how I want to start and how I want to finish. And I think really it depends on your leadership.
Well, and I ask this from a personal, standpoint. I mean, I don't know how this is going to end, right? I mean, at least the Sales Whisperer, right? And this is a different company than yours. I've slowly brought experts on that can do development, but it's very much training, speaking, things like that. I know if I sat around, I've written business plans in the past, long ones, short ones. I feel like I never go back and even look at them, So maybe I need to get better at that. But if entrepreneurs can get frozen from too many choices, do you think they can get frozen trying to make this business plan or this exit strategy before they even get started? And if that's the case, should they just jump in?
Yeah, it's a really a nuanced question. I hate to say it depends, but it really does. Everyone's different. I mean, there's so many different flavors of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs. I've the pleasure of hanging around with tons of different flavors, and not a single person is alike. The way that they perceive the world, the way that they see their organization, the way that they lead, the way that they build teams, the way they build products, and but you yourself know, especially I think if you're have been in the workforce for some time and are outside of college, you have a good idea of your behaviors and the things that your perspective of the world and your opinions about your own lifestyle. And oftentimes we don't listen well enough, I think, to our own hearts and our own minds about the way that we perceive the world, and we may justify away some of those things. Like, for example, for me, a failure that I've had, with my last company is I didn't speak up enough and often enough about the speed that I wanted the organization to grow and the exit that I knew in my heart that I wanted. I've never been a part of an organization longer than like 2 years. In fact, I was at one organization for 2 years and 9 days, and that was way too long. I overstayed my welcome about a year. And otherwise, it's been every 4-6 months. I would move to another organization, and that's kind of part and parcel with the technology industry. But because things move so quickly, so for me to stick around for 4 years, I really did them and the company a disservice. Because that's not the way that I'm made. But you've got, 3 other partners and employees and their kids and their families and their mortgages to care about, and with the greatest intention, we stuck around, but we didn't hit our benchmarks, and it started to show. And so, it's a very personal question. It was really the answer to that. It depends, but it's also very personal. You know how you want to build. You know the lifestyle that you want to build for yourself and for your family, and your employees, the ones that don't have equity, they have to live with that. And I want to do a better job next time.
So next time is now, right, with Pressgram?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Do you have partners on that? How is that structured? 'Cause I know you did like a Kickstarter kind of fundraising last year, right?
Yeah, well, earlier this year. This has been a very unique experience for me. I started concepting this idea September 4th, 2012. I remember the day. I have it kind of annotated in one of my notebooks. And it was a night and weekends project. I was disenfranchised with Facebook and Instagram. I was over their terms of service and et cetera, et cetera. I had issues with their privacy policy. And so I said, I'm just going to build something myself. So I concepted it, and for 6 months really stayed silent about it. Spent a couple hours here, a couple hours there, maybe binge on the weekend. Had no intention of ever really releasing it publicly. I was going to provision it on my own device and use it for myself. And it was only in March of this year where my wife literally just out of the blue said, "Why don't you put it on a Kickstarter?" And what's so interesting, and this happens all the time with my wife and I, she's really the brilliant one. She comes up with the great ideas. She's a strategist in all senses of the word. But I have actually backed over 200 projects on Kickstarter myself. I love that network, but I have never considered doing it myself. So go figure. And so she says, you should put it on Kickstarter. And I said, oh, well, okay, fine, okay. I'm always up for a challenge. And so I put together the campaign in one night actually, and then launched it Saturday morning, Saturday morning at 12:04 a.m. And within 32 hours, I had over $10,000 committed to the project. And long story short, I raised about $56,500, which is fantastic, which met my goal, and it became very much a public project.
Right.
But the thing is, that was never the plan. It was never to be a public initiative, and so it quickly shifted gears. And the last 5 or 6 months or so have just been a whirlwind. In fact, it helped become, in a very good way, a very large decision point for why 8-bit no longer really had a role, at least for me in my life, because I've been spending so much time on it. And so now we're a week into it, almost 2 weeks, I guess, Thursday. And the app's grown really well, and I've been very happy with it. We released our 1.1 update last night, which was awesome, and the users are very happy.
Yeah, I've been able to post it to just for testing, to my own WordPress site. I got to figure out the server issues on my normal sites, but just haven't had time to mess with it. But I've been following you. I too have been upset with Facebook, Instagram. And you see how much they're changing, how much commercialization is creeping in, how they're gaming the system. If you're not paying for the sponsored posts and whatnot, things aren't appearing. So I mean, this is fantastic. But how does Kickstarter work exactly? Do you have to pay these investors back with interest? Is there a certain amount of time, or how does that work?
No, that's kind of the beauty about it. It's really a very altruistic type thing. I think one of the biggest mistakes is people who support other projects on Kickstarter. They come at it very much like a marketplace, and it really isn't. In fact, Kickstarter actually wrote a blog post that says, "Hey, Kickstarter is not an online store. You're there to support someone else's dream, essentially, and you get nothing except some really good feeling inside, and then perhaps a reward, which is typically some swag or maybe the product itself at a discounted rate. But otherwise, I mean, especially in my case, this is a piece of software that I was going to go give away for free, and so." I had some T-shirts and some stickers to hand out to some of the backers, but otherwise, they believed in the vision. They believed in the value that the product could create, and they were trading a couple dollars, maybe a little bit more, to see that dream become a reality, so that they could use it. And that's really, really cool. That's the reason why I back a lot of the projects. In fact, when I back projects, I typically check the box that says I don't need a reward. I just believe in this project. I don't need a T-shirt. I have enough T-shirts, believe me.
Right.
And that's really cool. I love seeing other people's dreams come to reality. And this was my dream. Well, it became a much larger dream. It was an interest and a hobby to begin with, but then now it's become my obsession. But and so there's no equity that changes hands. I still retain 100% of the project and the company, and that's really good for me.
What's an average donation on Kickstarter?
I think they actually pulled these statistics in 2012, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I think the average donation was between $70 and $90.
Oh, okay. Well, that's still a nice donation. Especially when I look at the plate at church going around, I see a bunch of ones and maybe a few fives. So 70 to 90 is pretty solid.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. And we had trying to raise 50,000. I got 498 backers, so almost 500. And so if you do the math, if you do 50,000 divided by $498. You're looking at $100 almost exactly per person average. So right on the money. But I really believe that the value that people will be able to get out of the application is going to be more than $100. So I feel internally very satisfied with people's return. Even the last couple of weeks, and even some of the alpha beta testers have seen incredible growth of their blog and their blog traffic. And that's where you monetize. That's where you're bringing in some of the advertising revenue. That's where you convert people to sales, and so I'm very excited for people to really get some crazy value out of it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I signed up for the October 4th meetup, so I'll host it out here at my office. So, I've been following it. I mean, I love it. And I love being able to own my own stuff, I mean, thank God, about time.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So for those that are considering Kickstarter, I mean, so this was something you had, it wasn't fully developed, but you had pretty much developed it, right? And then you were working alone, and you put this on Kickstarter. For people that are interested in going that route, do they need a very developed product before they do it? Should they just push their idea out there, see if there's some funding before they really get into development? What's the path for somebody to go that route?
It's a great question. For starters, the best way is to actually peruse the existing projects and historical projects to find ones that are generally the same in kind of niche, in product type, and in the amount of funds that you're interested in raising. And you'll get a very good idea of what works and then what does not work, because not every project is successfully funded. And once you do your due diligence there, you'll have a good kind of sense of where your project might sit on that continuum of success, at least in terms of reaching your project goal. You'll find some projects that are just concepts, that they're just paper napkin sketches of an artist who wants to make a book. And then you may have some projects that have the prototypes already created, and they're raising funds for additional fabrication or, kind of their first large production run. For me, I just finished kind of the initial wireframes, and I just started laying down some code. So I had the concept. It was beefy enough to actually create a roadmap, a product roadmap, but I hadn't yet really built the framework out from a software perspective. So I was kind of in the middle. It is worth noting, it is getting harder to get software into Kickstarter. I think Indiegogo, which is kind of an alternative crowdfunding source, accepts almost anything, so that might be a better route to go. But Kickstarter is constantly changing their criteria for acceptance, and so it's always good to see what they're accepting now and stuff like that. But the bottom line is, if you have an itch to scratch, and you're passionate about it, and you're interested in pursuing it further, you almost lose nothing by submitting your idea. And in a way, that exercise alone is good enough for many people. It's to submit an idea and just get rejected, and to say, you know what, I need to refine that better. That was not a very good way to pitch that idea, or I knew it was going to get rejected because I'm not prepared. I'm really my heart's not into it fully. And I just needed this reminder. Or for those who are accepted, like, oh my God, this could be the big break. This could help move me out of my, current job situation and environment. And for those that do, best of luck. I really hope it does change lives. There's a local crowdfunding meetup here in Atlanta that I've attended a couple times, and I've heard those stories about some Kickstarter projects. The guy and a gal created kind of a coffee making machine, one that I look at, I'm like, big deal. I feel like I've seen that 1,000 times over. And they were trying to raise, maybe 60, 70, 80,000, and they got $250,000 or something, 300,000. Wow. And it's changed their lives. It literally has changed their lives. They went from their full-time jobs to doing this now full-time. They're having issues with production because there's too much demand. And it's just an awesome place to be. And, if you would have asked them 8, 9 months ago if they could have seen themselves doing this, they would have looked at you like you were crazy. And that's just so exciting, that the internet provides that opportunity for people.
So is there like a Kickstarter board that approves or rejects these things?
Yeah, it's just staff. It's Kickstarter staff who will vet the project based on some internal criteria. And you never know. I mean, my original project was rejected, and you get to appeal it. In like 300 characters or less. It's not 300 words. It's like 300 characters. So it's like, it's like 2 times the length of a tweet. And you're like how can I get this passed? And so I did. I said, hey, I think you rejected me wrong. I for whatever reason you said that this doesn't make sense as a project. I think that's categorically false. In fact, I've outlined that apparent discrepancy here, and within a couple hours after my appeal, they were like, "Oh, sorry, yep," and they accepted it. So they're still human at the end of the day.
So what happens if you don't meet your number? You just give the money back, or like it sits in escrow?
Nope. The project is not complete, and the backers don't owe you anything, and you don't get any money. This is one of the reasons why Indiegogo is a very nice alternative. Indiegogo, another crowdfunding alternative, you actually get to keep anything that you raise. So if you're trying to raise, if I was trying to raise 50,000 and I got 49,000 instead of 50, I would actually get 49,000. But Indiegogo takes a little bit larger of a cut if you don't. So, but at that point, big deal. Like you still raised, you still got something out of it. So, Indiegogo for a lot of projects is a much healthier alternative. You still get something even if you don't get all the way. In Kickstarter, it's all or nothing.
Gotcha. So we're getting a little feedback. Are you hearing that?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Are you building your team differently now for PressGram than how you built it for 8-bit?
Well, very much so. I mean, actually, let me take that back. I built my original product with 8-bit by myself, and I built it in a week while I was in Dallas working on my graduate work, and it was a winter semester, and I launched it, a week later, and then it proved the concept, proved some market fit, and then I went out and found a team around it. I'm doing generally the same thing. I built my prototype. In fact, it's much more than a prototype at this point. It's market ready. People are using it. Thousands of people are using it, actually, which is really exciting. And now I'm going to go find a team. I'm going to find the right people to kind of fill in the blanks. And that's generally my MO. I've always been interested in building the prototype, a robust thing, and then finding a team around it. Other founders and entrepreneurs will find a partner first, and then they will come together and build a product as a team. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not the way that I do it. I just have such a strong passion toward a particular thing that I have enough energy to go build it myself, and then I'll find a team. And naturally, as an out cause, there are different things to play with, equity-wise, venture capital-wise, and stuff like that. So it just works for me. But right now, I have had a number of interviews for kind of technical roles, even technical co-founder roles. I'm trying to recruit people heavily out of very successful companies here in Atlanta. And that's always fun. It's funny, I met with the CTO of a very well-established, very successful startup that has VC capital. 2 weeks ago, I had coffee with the guy, and then I met the CEO for the first time, although we had kind of crossed paths. I met the CEO last week, and he was like, "Hey, I heard you met with so and so," and I looked him straight in the face and was like, "Yeah, I was recruiting him." And we both laughed, and I said, "Hey, dude, you've got a great thing going on, and looks like he's going to stay. So I'm not a threat to you, but for me, it's just like, why beat around the bush?" I had a coffee with him because I wanted to recruit him away from that company, but so yeah, I'm doing that, and I'm raising venture capital to supply to salaries and benefits and all that good stuff to these employees, hopefully.
So how does somebody monetize a free app?
In-app purchases is typically like the number one go-to model is, paid upgrades. So for example, in my case, a lot of photography apps or photo sharing apps have advanced filters that you can pay 99 cents for, or maybe, $5 for a pack of them. So that's an obvious thing. That model works, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do that entirely yet. But with the thing with Pressgram is it's so well connected with the publishing world and WordPress, which the WordPress world very well. There's an entire ecosystem that's very successful. In fact, that's my background. I built a WordPress company. And I think there might be some ties there to build an ecosystem around this free app, almost like a gateway into premium products, so to speak, or if, as you're a marketer. So this doesn't apply wholesale, but almost like a loss leader, almost, as a channel for other products deeper into the store. And but I'm still exploring that. For me right now, it's about scaling the application, building the user base, knocking down and locking in the user experience, and just creating raving fans, some of which I already have. And but I can always use more. So that's what I'm focused on right now. Building team, raising some venture capital, and then we'll figure out how to make some money.
Right, because for some companies it would be obvious in that they want service work. They want people to contact them. Hey, can you do? I see what a great developer you are. Can you do something for us? And then they're negotiating from a position of strength. Right, they're the expert. And they can basically name their own price to do development work. But that's not your play, right? I mean, you're all about developing for yourself and launching apps and things like that for sale?
Yeah, I think for me, and again, this is just me, so there's no prescription here for anyone else. But if I'm not in love with what I'm building, and if it doesn't solve a very personal itch or problem that I have, then I'm not going to pursue that product or that solution any farther. And but when I find something that I want to use and I build it, there's something so deeply rooted in my subconscious about it that I'm willing to go the extra mile. And it's that extra mile for entrepreneurs that really makes a difference. It really is what separates kind of armchair entrepreneurs, ones who wish they were but never really do anything, and those who actually do. It's that grit, that resolve, that perseverance. It's kind of deep-seated desire to see something come and work itself out. And so for me, unless I have that, I know I'm not going to be able to get through the really tough times like for example, the kind of the big season for me right now, which I've experienced previously, is the fundraising season. That is a incredibly difficult time. You kind of put your family life on hold. My wife is already mentally and emotionally prepared for her husband to do road tours, to be flying coast to coast, maybe even internationally, to meet with people, to raise capital, to be somewhat of a degenerate husband and kind of a deadbeat father for a period. That, like, if you didn't love your solution, if you didn't love your product, if you didn't love the concept of what you're building, then you would give up. Because those are very difficult times. Like building a company, building a startup, building your own venture is so freaking hard. If you don't love it, then you're going to bail, very quickly. And so for me, it's always started with scratch my own itch. I have to create my own solution, because if I don't, I'm just not going to be in love with it enough to get through the really tough times.
So, last couple of questions around just your personal production. I mean, I fancy myself a writer, but man, I can't keep up with you even close. How do you write so much?
And I've actually taken a back seat to one in 2011. I wrote 3,264 or 68 posts, an average of almost 9 a day, for 365 days. And that year, I experienced explosive growth in my ventures, in raising funds, in my personal brand. But the point of that, sharing that, is not, hey, John, you're awesome. It's, I didn't get tired of it. I still loved it. And for me, it was really I'm able to isolate a particular period of the day to dedicate to writing, and it's the morning. I wake up at 4:35 every morning, and I write till about 7. And my girls 7 is when my girls get up. They get up earlier, but they're not allowed out of the room until 7. And so I've got this huge block of time. My wife and I work with boundaries, so this really big boundary line where I can just go at it hard. And I've developed that over time. I've been blogging since 2001. I've been journaling almost as long as I can remember. And so, in a lot of ways, it's muscle memory. But a lot of ways, there's some methods that I use that have helped me accelerate my writing, kind of internal templates, if you will. For anyone who's used Microsoft Word or PowerPoint and stuff like that, there are templated systems within those products, and those templates exist so that you can accelerate production. Now, as a writer, over time, you develop those internal templates. And so you no longer have to look at something, explicitly on your wall. You just know this is this type of post, and that's what I'm going to execute against. It's going to require 2 pieces of media, 1 picture, 3 links, and it's going to be 800 words. And for me, that's a template that I have refined over the last decade and some change. And so for me, it's I just knock it out. And it seems effortless, but it's not. It's still very much of a difficult challenge sometimes to write. But over time, very much like anything else in life, as you practice it, you do get a little bit better. I tell my girls this all the time: practice does not make perfect. Practice makes better. And unfortunately, their teacher keeps saying practice makes perfect, and I don't know why she says that, but she's messing up my education at home.
Yeah, amen. So does that mean for those 365 days, like no partying? I mean, go to bed early so you can get up early and stay focused on this? I mean, how do you still go to Disneyland or the pizza parlor and kids' birthday parties and soccer practice?
Yeah, I don't want to give your audience even the remotest idea that I'm an amazing husband or father. I have failed many times as a person of relationships. I'm obsessed with my work. I love what I do, and my wife did not know that she married an entrepreneur when she married me. I moved my wife 5-6 times in the first 4 or 5 years for ventures. We've gone up and down the financial pole countless times, from living in someone's basement to owning a house with cash to, living in my parents' house to owning another house with cash. It's just, it's incredibly difficult to be an entrepreneur, and then to be married to one is just, my wife is just full of grace, and she loves me. Thank God. And so, but over time, we have developed techniques that work for us. And, everything is contextual. So not everything that works for me and my family works for another family. And so we're never dogmatic or fundamental about what we do. But what we've created is a very simple system that's called boundaries. It's a boundary-based system. And just, hey, there are boundaries during the day, which when you get to, you stop. But within those boundaries, within that framework, is an incredible freedom. And so, just like I could break it down for you, it's very simple. There's a boundary marker at 7 o'clock. You can wake up John at any time you want, but when 7 o'clock hits, you're getting your daughters up, you're feeding them, you're getting them to school. I walk my kids to school. I did it this morning, and then when I get back, I put my daughter. She'll go into her room and read some books. She has some time with her iPad. And then I have another boundary. I can get to work from, about 8:30 till 2. And I can do whatever I want. I can have lunch with the kids. I can have lunch with my wife. I can have lunch, do meetings with my coworkers or meetings with whoever I need to. But at 2 o'clock is when my oldest is done with first grade. No. And I go and pick her up. And then we have, kind of lights off technology-wise from about 2:30 till 7. That's when we have when lights are out for my kids, and that's another boundary. And it's family time. It's go to the park. It's soccer. I just started a soccer clinic for my daughter and her friends, and so we did that yesterday. And we'll go out to eat. We'll have mealtime together. But then after the kids go down, my wife and I will have it's kind of another boundary. the rest of the evening, what do you want to do? Maybe my wife and I will go play Monopoly, or we'll go watch a movie, at home together. Or she loves reading. Oh my God, the iTunes network for reading, the iTunes library network. Oh my God, it's just, you get free samples, and she must have read every free sample ever on iTunes. And she just loves reading. And so she would say, I just want to read my books. And I'm like, great, because I just want to program my app. And so, but we'll have a discussion. It'll be an active discussion. And, as a married person, you kind of look into each other's eyes, and you know exactly what the answer is without even speaking. So, but that's my entire day. That's a day in the life of John Saddington. I have these boundaries. I have incredible freedom within them. But there are some certain points during the day where I'm required to be a husband. I need to be a father. I need to be available, and just worked out for us. And that's how we do it.
Very cool. Are there any blogs or authors you read and follow, and how do you stay sharp yourself?
Oh yeah, that is a great question. For me, there are I use Feedly. Feedly Pro is one of my favorite kind of applications. I was one of the first 5,000 to buy a lifetime subscription to Feedly, and so for $99, I have like Feedly Pro for life, which is awesome. But there are a couple of big names that I typically walk through, and most of these are venture capitalists or kind of entrepreneurs themselves. Seth Godin is one, Paul Graham, Ben Horowitz, Joel Spolsky from Coding Horror, Gabriel Weinberg, Anil Dash, Dustin Curtis, Chris Dixon, Gruber, Brad Feld. So those are some names that if you just Google them, you can get their blogs. That's how I stay sharp. But in a lot of ways, and I'm subscribed to a number of Mac, kind of 2OW, Cult of Mac Rumors, Apple Insider, and stuff like that related to my industry, and kind of your more general stuff like The Verge and NextWeb and GigaOM. But in general, I don't have time to read. I love reading. I actually I read a lot of physical books, but RSS, it's only when I have absolutely nothing left to do, which is very rare. And I think something that happens, something that I've encountered in highly productive people, is that they are so consumed with doing the very few things that they're passionate about and very good at, that they have almost no time for kind of sideline commentary, is what I call it. And they're not concerned about missing something. I think that's one of the biggest temptations for budding entrepreneurs, is that they feel like they need this library of information so that they can feel competent enough to go execute on their great idea. But the fact is, most entrepreneurs, if not all very successful entrepreneurs, they executed in an environment of absolute ambiguity. They didn't know that they were going to be successful. They had no idea. They had even know they built entire new industries. And so how do you compare? How can you take someone's field notes and say, well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to build an entirely new industry. Well, it just doesn't happen that way. But you're passionate about something, and you're interested in creating, products or being productive. And all this social commentary or what's hot, in the industry becomes very, very unimportant. It's much more important that you focus on building that business or that product, and if you have time to do some research. And I have found that for myself. I spend most of my time building product, and I'm not concerned about my next competitor. There will always be another competitor. There will always be a better app out there. There will always, especially in photo sharing and social networking, for goodness sake, there's a new competitor featured by TechCrunch every single day. And I could just drown in my own sorrows and guilt and shame if I spent my time reading that RSS, but I'm not. I'm interested in building the best product that I've envisioned for my consumers, my customers, and it's working. And I count that partly luck, but I just count that as focus.
Yeah, I saw a quote recently. I need to go look it up, but it was like, it's wonderful to, bring new ideas into your mind, just don't invite them all in at once, with something like that. I think that's what gets entrepreneurs in trouble, which is how we kind of started the conversation.
Yeah, it's one personal goal. I don't know if this is not prescriptive for any of your users, but my goal is I want to learn something new every day. And it could be as mundane as a simple thought or idea from Wikipedia, or it could be some very large-scale global thing. I'll tell you what I learned yesterday, which is fundamental to who I am and what I'm building, is I learned yesterday that you can't call something a photo until it's printed. Did you know that?
I did not.
It blew my mind, and I began a word study on it, and then looked at it because it's a picture and an image until it gets printed. It becomes a photo because photo is short for photograph, lithograph, and it becomes something physical. So it rocked my world yesterday because I was thinking, well, I call my app photo sharing, but we're not printing anything. We're digitally publishing, and you could make some semantic, argument against that or whatever. But I'm like, well, no, to kind of uphold the historical understanding of photograph, it's, you have to print the darn thing. And anyway, there's nothing tactical to do with that piece of information. But I feel like my entire world has changed now that I know that. And I feel like mission accomplished. I learned something incredibly valuable for myself, and it's awesome that I know something more about my world, and especially specifically the industry that I live in. And but there's nothing to do with that information, And so, but that gets me far. And all the other RSS stuff that I read that day, bullshit. Who cares? Who cares? Great stuff. People are making millions of dollars. Awesome. Like, that's never changed. But I just learned something really, really cool about photograph. And so I just feel like, there's a kind of a prioritization of information. But
you mean you didn't learn about like what Miley Cyrus is going to wear at her next award show?
Oh God, I'll just get that randomly through some tweet. some self-righteous person saying she should go to hell, but as always.
Oh, man. Well, hey, you helped me, and you helped everyone listening learn a lot today. Obviously, you've got john.do is your primary site today, right? Are you also sending people to Pressgram?
Yep. Those are my two properties, john.do or john.do. Sometimes I say it. So for short for John Doe, which I think is a funny way to think of it, because I'm the last person that's a John Doe. But those are my main properties, and I blog every day. I have for the last 13 years, and hope to create value for people.
Well, I think you're doing it.
Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Now you know what I sound like at 6 a.m. when I've got to be quiet so I don't wake up the kids when we start off an interview. But that was a great interview with John. As you can tell, we keep these things real. This thing's not edited. John's a laid-back guy, very intense though, very focused. We talked about entrepreneurs getting frozen with ideas. You need to get out there, focus, dig deep, become excellent, execute. Like he said in there is no right answer. Okay, you've got to get started. And as I started out this podcast, you've got to be willing to be bad at something until you get good. So keep moving forward, keep listening, keep doing. And as always, I'd appreciate a kind word, a few kind words, a 5-star rating on iTunes. Leave some comments on the website at thesaleswhisperer.com, and share this podcast with others to help them grow. The more we share, the more the word gets out, the more traffic comes to me. Look at my conversions, make more money to feed these 7 beautiful babies, not to mention a beautiful wife, a big dog, and I like to eat as well. Thank you for listening, and remember to sell different.